Scarlet Moon Creations, and I am here with yet another video for the YouTube Pagans Challenge, and I'm doing the letter G. And I decided for this video to do Green Witchcraft. Slightly off topic thing first. Alright, so a green witch, this term, green witchcraft, I've heard since I first got into witchcraft, even before that when I was doing research on different types of paganism. And I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, it's like, it's green, so it must be related to like the earth and environmentalism, and it is, but that's not all. For some reason, I've heard this many times in my research, people kind of confuse it with hedge witchcraft, and I guess because the imagery of the word hedge, but also it seems to me that some thought of hedge witchcraft in a more general sense, or actually I should say what hedge witchcraft means in modern days, nowadays, is not quite what it used to mean, or at least in Europe. And I think that is the fact that hedge witchcraft at one point in time was just like, you know, in I don't want to say ancient times, I don't know, maybe in previous centuries, the witch was like kind of like the spiritual person in a town or community, and they were separate. People lived in small communities, and they were closer to nature, so there was like a physical hedge that separated them from, you know, the wildness of nature, so to speak. And the witch, or whatever they were called at that time, would live on the other side of the hedge. And, you know, you would only go past the hedge to visit the witch, or maybe go hunting, or whatever have you. And, you know, that was the person you went to for maybe your medical purposes, also spiritual purposes, and many other things. So, the sun has come out, or from behind the clouds temporarily anyway. So that's the hedge witch is in more modern times, and I'm forgetting what another term is, but hedge witch is specifically someone who does journeying through trance, visiting other realms, the spirit realm, and that kind of thing. It's very similar to some shamanistic and Native American practices, and like the medicine man or woman, and I do not pretend to be an expert in any of that. But that is what a hedge witch is today. And wow, the sun is all of a sudden super bright, so sorry for like being sunny over here and dark over there. It looks like this is gonna last. I checked the weather, and it's like it's gonna be cloudy all day. Anyway, so what a green witch is like I said, someone who's connected with nature, with the planet, the earth. Essentially, I think at its foundation, it's someone who's aware of nature's energies or natural energies that flow, and is conscious of those energies and uses them consciously in their daily life, and particularly in their witchcraft practice. It can be a religion or just like a spiritual practice. So yeah, they're conscious of nature's energies or natural energies, and they use that in their daily life and in their practice. It could be a religious practice, like a religion, or just like a spiritual practice, something they do, as most witchcraft can be. I'm gonna keep this on the mostly spiritual side of things. Someone connected with nature is another way of putting it. Many see, so many sometimes see like fairies as nature spirits, spirits that embody nature. Some are animists, where each blade of grass, each leaf on the tree, each animal, plant, bug has a spirit of its own that we should acknowledge and respect. And I can respect that. I don't know how I don't personally practice that way, but to be perfectly honest, I did not call myself a green witch until maybe last year. I didn't really think about putting labels on things, because it's basically for myself. I don't need labels. I know what I am and what I practice, and I don't need the words for that. But to communicate with others, and that's, the easiest way to give things words and labels. And so it's something I've been considering delving into, animism, but that's just me. I'm gonna swing back and forth between some practices that people who are considered green witches or practice green witchcraft do, not that all of them do all of these things, and swing back into my personal practices and beliefs in this video. A lot of it is focused on, the green witchcraft is focused on the earth, the environment, and the planet, all living things, and even environmentalism to an extent, protecting the planet, maybe going so far as protesting, or maybe just doing your best to reduce your local footprint and how you affect your local environment. There's also things like bringing nature into your home, having plants and animals inside, either the actual plants, or representations of them. They be pictures, drawings, photography, stuffed animals, or some other representation, whatever you can think of, it's possible. So there's also bringing nature into your daily practice, and some examples of that. And this is why, when I came across the definition of green witchcraft, I was like, oh wait, don't I do that? So for example, what I do, if you haven't gotten this from watching any of my other videos, things like using crystals, herbs, in your rituals, in your ritual tools, using natural ritual tools like metals, woods, and that kind of thing in your practice. I make oils, incense with all natural ingredients, and it is is practicing green witchcraft. This bird gets really intense when it gets really loud. It's like it's complaining about the loud noises around. So that is a way using things like feathers, shells, sea water, spring water. I mentioned herbs and flowers and stuff like that. Maybe using natural elements, natural fibers in your altar cloth, or metal sculptures and whatnot on your altars. If we're going the religious route where you worship a deity, maybe you worship particular deities for particular times of year that have to do with the seasons, or the more earthy deities. And there's also this idea of, and which I really like, there's a book called The Green Witch, which was interesting. And one thing that was said in the book was like, green witches kind of maintain harmony between people and nature, since both have energies that affect the other. And I like that. It also talks about how even though we're in, a modern society, or even though maybe you don't live, in a green area, as you can see, and if you don't know this yet, I live in New York City. Right now I am in a public park, one of my local public parks, and so there's greenery all around. You can hear the birds chirping. I don't know if you can see, but there's bugs flying everywhere because it's June. But you can also hear construction in the background, and people talking, kids playing, traffic going by, and this is my local green space. And I am grateful for it, but I don't know if I would leave it for a greener space. So what I'm saying is, like, you don't have to live on a farm or near a jungle or forest to really be a green witch. And I appreciate that being said in the book and by like every green witch I've ever met or seen or heard of. Because, the way I can share this video with you is by using my phone. And modern technology, the internet, Wi-Fi, all of that to upload the video, and programs to edit it and whatnot. So, there's that. For me personally, my personal practice as far as being a green witch is including a lot of herbalism and herbal lore, improving my knowledge about plants and animals, both for magical and magical and ritual practices and purposes, but also for my daily life. One of the main reasons I started Scarlet Moon Creations is because a lot of the man-made chemicals, though they start out with natural elements, they've been so changed that for me personally, a lot of them are irritants. And so many irritants on a daily basis honestly makes for a very unfocused Lachette and a very irritated Lachette. I'm not going to die from most of my allergies, but when they all pile up, it's a lot. So, learning how to make body care products with all natural ingredients, finding them. If I can't make them myself or I don't want to make them myself, there are other people who do, and finding out what works for me and what helps me live a comfortable and healthy life in a green way is important. The same with home products, cleaning things, stuff like that. It's very, frustrating when both the dirt and the dust gives you allergies, but then so do the cleaning products. So looking for cleaning products that make me want to clean and keep my space green and healthy and fresh is important. Knowing what those ingredients are, keeping that research up, that's all part of, for me, my green witchcraft practice. As is aromatherapy, essential oils. That was 2 videos ago, and the lighting is better again, and the sun is less intense. So slowly learning more and practicing all of that as part of my regular daily practice at being a green witch, but also so is visiting spaces like this, just being in nature, some trips getting out of the city. I won't give too much detail, but my high priestess has a very lovely green space that we can practice in, and I am grateful for it. It's something I never thought I would get, but it is just, it's amazing. There's also visiting the various parks, going to the local zoo, the local botanical gardens, bringing plants into your home, having potted plants. I live in an apartment, and yeah, we have windowsills, but they're not that big. So, learning about gardening indoors and gardening in potted plants, and noting the green spaces and artwork around the city. It's a big city. There's lots of things like murals and graffiti, and it's an old city. Probably not as old as many cities in Europe, but it's an old city. There's lots of architecture and stone masonry that reflects nature, which I find absolutely fascinating. We have a lot of museums, so there's tons of professional artwork out there as well with that reflects nature. So I'm still a city witch, but also a green witch. There's being aware of what I'm taking into my body, having a more balanced diet, fruits and vegetables, and that kind of thing. Doing a little bit of kitchen witchcraft with the herbs there and the food there, the plants and animals that we use, being aware of what we're using and why we're using, and occasionally having some magical purpose behind it. Like a happy home, a healthy family, and that kind of thing is usually what my personal kitchen witchcraft goes to. Knowing more about like the street trees, Million Trees is a program that started in Los Angeles, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and it was picked up here in New York City, and I love it. I was born in the early 80s, and our city was still kind of dealing with the dearth of the 60s and 70s, where our green spaces were few and far between. When the economy is not doing well, things like green spaces, local parks, and that kind of thing are some of the first to get cut budget-wise. And so, like, this park did not exist 2 years ago. It wasn't even fully open until 6 months ago. This was just an empty lot. I grew up here in New York City, surrounded by tons of empty lots, buildings that were burnt out, because I live in a part of the city where there was a lot of burnings just before I was born. Now we have things like green streets. We have the Million Trees program, all created and funded partially, by our taxes and the New York City Parks Department, which I used to be an employee of. but also, you know, people donating both their time and their money and their energy into improving, the local lifestyle. And so we at a park like this in my neighborhood, which is not, a fancy one, we get, things like green streets where they take like strips in the middle of 4-lane streets, or the bits of the corners of some streets, and they just put a little mini garden in it. And it was amazing the last month or two, just like driving around, and there's tulips and all kinds of like bulbed flowers blooming and growing in just random places, just to have beauty in a natural way locally is not something that I grew up with, but that's something that I am privileged to have now. And let me pause. So I'm very aware of that privilege, and that's part of my practice, being aware of the green privileges that I am able to access completely for free here in the middle of New York City. And that's amazing. The privilege to be able to go outside the city if necessary. If I want to go on a hike, I can. If I want to go camping, I can. And I want to go swimming in a lake, I can. And I also have, thanks to the technology of the modern world, the privilege of, taking pictures of local wildlife, the birds, recording their sounds to learn, what the different sounds are. The same with the insects and bugs, as well as the local plants. I mentioned the Million Trees program, and part of that is, improving the air quality in the city. And what they do is they plant trees on local sidewalks, and they put little tags on them, so I can, learn more about that tree. I can observe that tree, or any trees, and watch it grow from a young, new tree to an older tree, and watch it go through its seasons and its cycles of life. And the same with planting, and just improving my knowledge about all of those things is personally my practice. So some last things I want to include. Some people, going back to the animism thing, they ask for permission and give thanks for to the natural elements before they take them and after they use them, and that's not necessarily just animist, but others as well. That's part of their spiritual practice. I haven't fully gotten into that. As a city witch, I'm very privileged to have a lot of things pre-prepped for me that I could purchase. But things like seashells, I've gotten them all myself, sand and that kind of thing. So yeah, when I am taking from nature, I definitely say a little prayer and in thanks. And let's see, some people say that using astrology or practicing astrology is another form of green witchcraft. I'm not 100% sure whether I agree with that or not. I can see, the planets are natural elements in our solar system, and it's definitely, astrology is all about energy. So, and I do practice and study astrology, but I haven't really thought about it in conjunction to green witchcraft. So we'll see. So yeah, that was kind of my rambly thoughts about being a green witch and green witchcraft. What did you guys think? Is this something that is a part of your practice? Do you want to include it in your practice if you haven't already? Do you have any thoughts about some of the stuff that I do or some of the stuff that I mentioned that maybe I don't do yet? If you consider yourself a green witch, please do share in the comments what you think. And that's all I have for you today. I'm going to shut up now because this is a long video. Um, Thank you for watching as always. If you would like to see what I offer in my shop, Scarlet Moon Creations, the link is in the description down below. Honestly, where a lot of my green witchcraft energy and goes into making products for other people. So thank you for watching. Bye.